I remember I was sitting at Panda Express with my wife having lunch, and I said, look, I think I want to leave my job. The worst thing that happens is I end up losing everything that we're investing, but I can always just go back and get this job in a couple of years. The upside is just infinite. Just be really financially independent.
How was that conversation?
My only fear was that...
Hey everybody, thank you for joining us for today's episode of Real Estate Disruptors. Today we got Sharad Mehta with REsimpli. And Sharad flew in from Carlsbad, California to talk about how he's flipped 50 houses a year, working just an hour a day. Now I'm on a mission to create 100 millionaires. The information on the show alone is enough to help you become a millionaire in the next 5 to 7 years. If you'll take consistent action, you will become one. And the show is brought to you by our sister company, InvestorLift. Get access to millions of cash buyers across the country. Go to investorlift.com and put in Disruptors to get 10% off. And guys, if you get value today, please hit that subscribe button. That way we can all grow together. You ready?
I am.
All
Let's do
right.
it, Steve.
All right. So first question is, what was your life like right before you got into real estate?
I was a full-time accountant, and being in accounting, I was really into personal finance. I wanted to be financially free, have freedom of time and money. So I tried doing everything. I was really into poker. So I wanted to be a full-time poker player at one time.
Love
Absolutely sucked. I have horrible poker face. If I pocket aces, you would know.
Really?
Yeah. Oh man, I'm horrible. I was just hooked onto it, but I just realized, that's not gonna get me anywhere. And then I was following a lot of personal finance blogs, and I came across one of the blogs I was reading. In the comments, someone had mentioned a link to a book called Millionaire Real Estate Investor. Clicked on that. Just kind of, the title sounded very catchy, Millionaire Real Estate Investor. I bought the book, and that kind of led me down the path of full-time real estate investing. And then I started Googling, went down to Bigger Pockets, just read, started posting and everything, then bought my first property in August 2010. 2-unit, was all in for about $35,000, rented both units for about $1,300.
We'll get to that. So, accountant. So
yes.
you went to college.
I went to college. I was a CPA.
So you were a CPA. So I've never actually asked this question before. Okay, so you graduate with a degree in accounting, I imagine?
Yes.
What was it from graduating with a degree to getting a CPA?
It wasn't very hard, to be honest. When I went to school, I was super broke. So I have an accounting degree, but I never could afford to buy an accounting book. So I would go to a library and study from the books that they had. Fortunately, they had a lot of CPA books. I would just study from that. It helped me prepare for the accounting exams, and that helped me pass the CPA. So I passed all my exams in first attempt. So.
Okay. But how long did it take for you, from I'm going to get my CPA, a certification,
right,
to getting it?
It took me about 3 or 4 months to...
Okay, so not too long.
Not too long, yeah. It wasn't very long.
When I see CPA, there's this kind of
No,
I'm a CPA.
I mean, my wife is a CPA also. My brother is a CFO at a company. He's a CPA too. It didn't take very long. I mean, it's about 3-4 months. But I never went into practicing for myself.
Right. But it sounds
company.
then it's about the same effort as getting a real estate license, perhaps.
Yeah, you could say that.
Okay.
Yeah, you could say that.
All right. So then, why accounting in college?
I moved from India. I wanted to study something that would ensure that I would have a job. Accounting seemed like the most...
It was a means to an end. It was not a passion.
No, it was definitely not out of passion, for sure.
Okay, well, because you say accountant and you say not a good poker player. In my head, if you're an accountant, generally you don't have a wide emotional range.
Right.
If you have a smaller emotional range, it should be easier or harder to read.
Yeah, no, it was definitely. I mean, when I moved from India, I moved here to get a computer science degree, but it wasn't my cup of tea. So I'm like, okay, what could I do that would sort of guarantee me a job after I graduate? And accounting or finance seems like the most, safest choice to go with.
So you were working in accounting.
I was working for one of the largest accounting firms.
Okay, and then from there, you saw this other world where you can buy real estate, cash flow, and so on.
Right.
How long from when you first found out about it until you did your first deal?
Say about 6 months to a year. It was pretty quick from the time I decided I wanted to buy something to the time I bought my own property like right after my wife and I got married in 2009, and then bought the investment property within a year.
Okay. Seeing as how that you were newer to it and you had a full-time job,
Right.
how did you find this property?
MLS.
MLS.
It was listed for $65,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Where?
In Indiana.
Okay. So this is your first property you buy in Indiana, bought it off the MLS, and it was just based off the numbers?
Exactly. Based off the numbers. I wasn't confident. I sat my wife down. I said, hey, we're going to buy this property. The worst case is I make the stupidest mistake ever. The worst case is we end up losing 25, 30,000. We had some money saved up. And the upside is the property works out and we're cash flowing like $600-700 extra, So I was like going based on the number, being an accountant, it's just, I could relate to it, using 50% rule, 2% rule, everything that people talked about, on Bigger Pocket, just like following that to the T.
So I'm not sure our audience necessarily overlaps with Bigger Pockets.
Right.
So can you elaborate on the
Sure.
50% and the 2% rule?
Yeah. So 50% rule would be if my house is rented for $1,000 per month, be very conservative and take 50% towards expenses. You may not have those expenses every month, but just, set it aside. Even if you don't have property management, set aside money for property management. So if I'm renting it out for $1,000, my cash flow would be $500 before mortgage payment. Okay. 2% rule would be if you're buying a house for, let's say $100,000, expect to get about $2,000 a month in rent on that property.
So shoot for 2%.
Shoot for 2%. I mean, it doesn't happen anymore, but you could buy it.
It did in 2010.
2010, yeah.
Yeah.
It did.
Okay, so the 50% rule doesn't sound like that would be in alignment with today with some of these guys buying these creative deals.
Yeah, it would not be. Yeah, I just happened to be at the right place at the right time.
Yeah. Because right now what seems to be popular is like it doesn't have to cash flow if the interest rate's good.
Right.
And eventually it'll work out.
Exactly. I would not feel comfortable with that.
Yeah.
But that's what a lot of people do. I personally would not. I'm a very conservative guy. I'm happy with that. Yeah.
Have you always been conservative?
I have, yeah.
Okay. So you buy your first deal.
Right.
Worst case, you lose 25, 30K. I'm assuming that's your down payment.
No. That was all in. Cash.
So you bought it 65K.
It was listed for 65. I offered 20,000. Sell it for 25. Put 10,000 into it.
You were a low baller. It's ridiculous, Ra.
That's what I did. I mean, they talked about like my mindset was, I'm just going to make an offer. What's the worst that's going to happen?
Yeah.
They say no.
Okay.
That's all right. Yeah.
So 25 for your first one.
25 for the first one.
What did your realtor say about this plan?
So one other thing I did was I approached the listing agent directly because, it's not high price property. So the agent isn't making much. So I went directly to the listing agent, just say, hey, look, I need to make an offer on this property. If you help me, you're going to get both sides off the commission. And it just worked out. But yeah, I think the first few properties I bought, I would just go directly to the listing agent. And it got to a point where it was just getting a little bit hectic for me to maintain all that relationship. Then I started working with a seller's agent.
Got it. So you go online, searching, clicking around on the internet, find these properties, reach out to the listing agent, and you have them represent both sides. That was the first deal.
Right.
That was true for the next few deals as well?
Correct.
So when you saw it online, you saw the Millionaire Real Estate agent as like investor.
Right.
Or Millionaire Real Estate investor.
Right.
Right. So you see this and you're like, okay, this is interesting. There were doubts in your head or you're like, the proof of concept was already there?
I mean, to me, proof of concept was already there. The book talked about, putting money down 20%. The book talked about buying it, with debt in place. My plan was to just buy it straight for cash.
Okay. So what adversities did you face then when you started down this road?
Just not knowing what I didn't know. It just honestly seemed too good to be true. Just buying a house for $35,000, renting for $1,300. It didn't make sense.
It still doesn't make sense.
It doesn't, right? I still own that property to this day.
Right.
Next month I bought another one for $44,000. Put like $5,000-6,000 into it. It was a 3-unit. One was I rented out for $600. The other two I rented for total $1,800. It did not make any sense. I'm just thinking, how is this possible?
Right.
And then after that, I remember sitting at Panda Express with my wife having lunch. And I said, look, I think I want to leave my job. The worst thing that happens is I end up losing everything that we're investing, but I can always just go back and get this job in a couple of years. But the upside is if it works out, the upside is like, just infinite. Like we could just be really financially independent.
How was that conversation?
My wife was very supportive. My parents were a little doubtful, like, why would you leave a job? You have this amazing job making good money. But just the lifestyle my wife and I had, we were always living on the lower of the two incomes and saving the higher income. So it wasn't going to affect our lifestyle. So she was very supportive that, hey, it's all right if you think it's the right thing to do. Let's just go ahead and do it. We didn't have any kids back then, so it wasn't like a big decision, that it wasn't going to affect our lifestyle. So
there wasn't a lot of stress on your end.
It was not, yeah.
Yeah, so that was actually very similar to myself and my girlfriend, my wife now, but at the time my girlfriend. And then my parents were like, why would you give up this great job?
Yeah.
It was the same exact conversation.
Yeah, it was tough to explain them. They were in India. There was like every parent's dream, their immigrant son or daughter goes overseas, graduates, gets a degree, but they never think about their son is going to leave the job,
right?
Making decent money. But it just seemed like, being an accountant, it just like the numbers seemed really too good to be true.
Right.
It just seemed like I mean, my only fear was that it's a scam, that whatever I'm doing, the property value is going to go to zero. But I'm thinking, even if it goes to zero, I'm getting rent. Who cares?
Right.
I'm buying it debt free. Like, who cares? Like, I can just, as long as I'm getting rent, I don't care about the property value. I'm never going to sell these properties. So that was my mindset going into it.
You're in for the long haul.
Yeah.
What were you making at your accounting firm when you quit?
Making about $72,000, and I was up for a bonus and a promotion. I was going to be promoted to manager. So it's a very difficult decision knowing that I was up for a bonus and a promotion, and the economy wasn't very stable at that point. I was working with ENY that had a massive round of layoffs. So it was like everything was stacked against kind of the decision that I wanted to make. It just felt like the right thing to do. It seemed like if I did not do it, I would have a huge regret.
Yeah. Okay, so how many properties did you have when you did decide to quit?
5 units.
5 units.
2 properties, 5 units.
Okay, what were you bringing in every month?
From those 2 properties, because I didn't have any debt, about $1,500 a month.
Okay, combined between all of them?
Yeah, like net cash flow.
Well, not net, but just like gross.
Oh, like gross? 3,300.
3,300. Okay.
Or 3,130, yeah.
So, okay, 3,300 turns into 1,500. So you're still not making, you didn't replace your income yet.
I did not.
Gotcha. Yeah. It's interesting in hearing the way you talk to your wife before, like, hey, we're going to buy our first property, as well as, hey, I'm going to quit my job, is you started off with a worst case scenario.
Right. I did.
Kind of like an accusation audit. So is that something you've always done, or is that just something that you were preparing for these particular conversations?
I mean, looking back now, and even looking back at kind of how I make decisions, I always kind of look at the worst case scenario, and then I'm like, hey, as long as I'm ready for this, if it happens, this is absolutely worse. Like, mentally, am I ready for it? If I am, like, let's go for it. And then I have to always compare it with the upside, right? I can just look at the downside. All right, what are the chances of downside happening? What are the chances of upside happening? And I'm looking at the odds of upside versus downside.
Right.
The upside has to far outweigh the downside. But if the downside were to happen, am I ready for it? If I am, then I'm like, yeah, let's just go for it. The upside.
Well, it gives you a lot of confidence.
It does, yeah.
But not everyone makes decisions this way.
Right.
Do you think your poker background helped with that?
I wouldn't call it my poker background. I played it a little bit here and there. Wanted to play World Series of Poker. I think I might still play, not with the intention of like making it my career.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess I'm sure it had some influence on, how I started looking at things, just being ready for it, ready for the worst case scenario. And then just like, all right, if it happens, am I prepared for it? Is it going to affect my lifestyle?
Yeah.
The decision that I'm making, how is that going to impact my wife, my parents, or, my family and friends? If it doesn't negatively impacts them in a big way, and then the upside of, would be huge, then let's just go for that decision.
Yeah. Well, I like that that's your thought process, but also that's the way you communicate the message as well to your spouse. So and I was just bringing up like my own poker thing was that for me, the way I made my decision, including quitting my job, was like, okay, if I make this decision this way 100 times, what are the long-term
Right.
expected value.
Yeah.
Right. Expected value is positive. I'm making this decision. If long-term, if this is like a bet, but long-term expected value is negative, I'm not making this decision.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was thinking along the same line, but I wasn't as beautifully you explained. I wasn't like explaining to my wife. I was just saying, hey, the worst case, we lose everything. We have about like, let's say 100,000 invested in these properties. The worst case, we lose everything. All right, I can always go get this job, make, 60, 70,000 again. But the upside is, we could be millionaires if this thing works out.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you quit your job.
Right.
Now that you're full-time,
Right.
was it easier or the same?
It was a little bit challenging because I left my job, but I didn't have enough properties to keep myself busy. So the biggest challenge was staying disciplined, not letting the freedom of time. I didn't have the freedom of money, but I had the freedom of time, not letting that like distract me. So I started kind of connecting, networking with other investors. Fortunately, one of my best friends, he was visiting Australia in 2011, and his cousin was a CFO of a marketing company in Australia. They were looking to buy properties in the US because the Australian dollar was very strong against the US dollar. So my friend connected us, and I kind of my friend now, his cousin actually flew down from Australia to Indiana. I kind of ran him through the numbers. They're like, oh, these numbers are just unbelievable. They're actually, I helped them buy 30 or 40 condos in Phoenix. So I actually flew down to Phoenix. They were under contract to buy 40 condos out of 300 condo unit building. So I flew down to Phoenix, kind of helped them close the deal. I said, hey, I want you to fly down to Indiana and just see the numbers there. So he flew down. He's like, this is unbelievable. So I started kind of wholesaling properties to them, not really knowing that was what I was doing was wholesaling.
Yeah.
So I started wholesaling properties to them. And then all the money that I was making from wholesaling, I started just buying more properties for myself. And then, because you could easily find something on MLS back then. It was just like you could go and choose whichever house you wanted to buy, make a bid on it. So it's super easy. So they were buying about hundreds of houses a year. So I was making money from that. I would just go invest in more rental properties for myself. So that's how I could just keep my portfolio free and clear.
Did you live in Indiana at the time?
I was living in downtown Chicago.
Downtown Chicago.
Yeah, so I literally followed the book. The book said, wherever you're living, just draw 1 mile driving or 1 hour driving radius from where you're living. I didn't even know I was living that close to Indiana, because when you're living in downtown Chicago, unless you have something going on in Indiana, you're not going over there. You're not going over there. So I'm like 1 hour driving radius. I'm like, wow, Indiana. Like I didn't even know I was living to a whole different state. So I started looking a little bit more into it. The numbers made sense. And the biggest factor was it was a landlord-friendly state. So that's why I started investing in Indiana.
Gotcha. So you got a lot of education from Bigger Pockets.
I did, yeah. Reading books, Bigger Pockets, just talking, going to local REIA meetings, just asking anyone who was more experienced than I was, just asking them questions, being a sponge, yeah.
So what were the biggest adversities then? Biggest unexpected adversity in growing this? Growing the real estate side?
Trusting contractors, I would say. Not knowing enough about the contracting side of the business. I was buying these properties that needed work done to them. So I was naive that if a contractor said, hey, this house needed a new furnace, I'm like, okay, if you say it needs a new furnace, it must need a new furnace. I don't do that anymore, but that's kind of what my process was back then. So I'm sure I spent more money than I really needed to on the repair side of the business. But it's all right. It still worked out. But then meeting the right people was definitely a huge thing that I wanted to make sure, like networking with the right people, and helping them also grow their business. Not just going in any relationship and saying, "Hey, what's in it for me?" It was like, "Hey, what's in it for both of us? If it works out, how is it going to help both you and I, not just me?" I think that was important. So the agent that I started working with, he was aligned. He was also kind of starting new in his business, so it kind of worked out for both of us. I connected him with that Australian company. So they were buying like hundreds of properties a year.
Wow.
It just worked out for everyone.
Right.
Yeah.
How were you networking with the right people?
Like going to local REIAs and seeing who is active in the market, who's like actually doing deals. What is it that they're doing? What areas are they investing in? rather than just trying to come up with my own plan, just follow a plan that somebody has already laid out, and then just say, hey, if it's already working for them, why can't I just like copy and just implement it in my own business?
Yeah, this business is not rocket science.
It's not like one thing. If I could go back, what I would do is I would hire a mentor or like work with a coach, because that would have really scaled up my, the growth that I was doing. I think that's one thing. If I could go back, I would buy more properties and work with a coach, who could just kind of guide me rather than just trying to network with people, which is still great. But just say, hey, Steve, you've done thousands of deals. Would you mind if I just if you have a mentorship program, networking program, can I be part of it? And then you can help me scale. So this way I can just come to you directly and ask you my specific question rather than going to 10 different people.
Yeah, I have the same regrets.
Yeah.
Right, if I were to do it all over again, number one, it was buy more property.
Right.
Number two is don't be too stingy.
Yeah.
Getting a coach, because I was like, why would I ever pay someone $25K when I would just lose 25? I'd rather lose $25K on a deal and learn from that.
Absolutely.
Than pay somebody, right?
Yeah.
And looking back, like that was such an ignorant statement to make.
I know. Yeah, it is. I mean, I've learned from it. So I'm working with a couple of coaches now to just kind of make sure I'm doing the right thing. Yeah, that's one thing. Like should have bought more properties and worked with a coach. Same two regrets.
When did you know, like, okay, this is it? Like I'm going, like everything I read about, like this is real. Because like even when you quit your job, it sounded like you weren't like fully like convinced.
Right.
When did you know it was real?
So after about maybe 2012, like before the end of 2012, like in a couple of years. So I bought my first property in August 2010, the second one in September 2010. So by 2012, I'm like, this is real. This is real. I don't think I'm ever gonna have to work again.
I'm a real estate investor now. This is it.
Yeah, this is it. Like I don't think I'll ever work for anyone.
So how did that feel?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. Just knowing, I was like 20, how old was I? Like 27, 28.
Yeah.
And just to be in that stage where like, hey, I'm kind of like financially free here.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not like super rich, super wealthy, but I'm financially free.
Well, you hit your freedom number.
Yeah, exactly. I hit my freedom number and I don't need to work for anyone. I could just do whatever I want to do and not have to work for anyone. So that was definitely very liberating.
What were some of your biggest victories along the way in buying those properties?
Like financial victories?
Financial, emotional, business, whatever.
I mean, emotional was, 2012, we took a pretty nice, 2012 and 13, we took like pretty nice vacation. We did African safari. We went to Asia, Europe 2013. We went to Machu Picchu, Argentina, Brazil. And it just felt amazing. It just felt like amazing that I don't have anybody that I have to report to. Like we went on a 5-week vacation in November and December. We went to Africa. Like I remember signing this closing document in the middle of African safari. So I had to go to like a local office. It felt so surreal that I'm like, I can't believe I'm doing this. I don't think I would have ever been able to enjoy it as much if I were working for someone.
You bought a house while you were in Africa.
I bought a house. Yeah. I bought a house while I was in Africa. Yeah, in the middle of nowhere. This was like in Serengeti, Tanzania, and I signed closing doc. It felt so amazing to do that.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So you're buying properties. Now I looked here in the notes, right? You got 50 properties free and clear.
Right.
So you started this in 2010. When did you when was there a transition where you were flipping or the software business? Like when did you decide to transition?
Transition to flipping?
Yeah, to move outside of just buy and hold, right? Because your first few years, it just sounds like predominantly just buy and hold.
Right, buy and hold and wholesaling to this Australian company.
Right. So when did you add another leg to your business model?
It was in 2014. So I'd been working with this title company, every deal that we had done up until that point, we were just buying with that title company. Just, one thing I'd read in Millionaire Real Estate Investor book was just make sure you build relationships. So I was buying all these properties through the same agent, through the same title company. So in 2014, we had done by 2014, we had done hundreds of deals with the title company. And the person at the title company, the escrow officer, came to me and said, Sharad, I have this lender, a local lender. They're trying to liquidate 35 properties. Would you be interested? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. So I looked at those properties. majority of them were in an area that I wasn't super interested in buying for myself, like a C-D neighborhood. But the agent that I was working with, he was interested. So I said, okay, you could buy, just pay me a small fee, and that's fine. Whatever you do with those houses. And some of those houses that we bought as a package, I think we ended up buying 20 of those houses. Some of those houses would not have made sense as buy and hold property. They're a little bit more expensive. The cash flow would not be there. I'm like, all right. And the deal with the lender was either I bought all of them or none of them. So I'm like, all right, I'll buy all of them. And then 2 of those properties were in an area where it was just, an hour drive from where I was investing. It would not have made sense buy and hold. So it would have only made sense flipping. I had not flipped any property until then. I'm like, all right, let's just figure out, how to flip this house. That's kind of how I was kind of forced into flipping. And then I was on 2015, I believe I was on a Bigger Pocket podcast. And then once that podcast aired, then a lot of investors started reaching out to me and saying, hey, love your story, would love to do kind of what you're doing. And then that's kind of just, I said, okay, I don't like sell houses to other investors, but let me see what I can do. And then I, started got into this turnkey business model that is, they're investors in New York, California, coastal areas, high cost of living, but they wanted to buy cash flow properties. Let me see. So I started buying more properties. I would rehab them, rent them out, and started working with, we were already working with a property management company for the Australian investors. So I said, all right, we'll give you these properties to the property management company, but these are going to be US investors buying. So then I got into flipping and turnkey properties from there on.
Can you elaborate for our listeners what turnkey means?
So turnkey property means a property that an other investor is buying. That's basically turnkey ready from them. Like the way we sell it is it's cash flowing from day one. So we would buy a property, we would rehab it, make sure all the foundational, mechanical, everything cosmetic is up to date. We would rent it out, put a property management company in place for their property. Then we would sell it to other investor. So when the other investor buys, it's turnkey property for them. They don't have to do anything. They're cash flowing from day one.
So it's rent ready.
Rent ready.
Property management in place.
Right. It's rented out. Yeah.
Oh, it's rented out.
It's already rented out. Everything we sell, it's already rented out.
Yeah. So it's already cash flowing.
It's already cash
You're
flowing.
buying based off of numbers.
Exactly. You're buying based off a number. So we actually have a lease. We show them this is what the lease is. This is what the deposit is. So it's cash flowing for day one. So when you buy, we transfer over the security deposit to you, prorated cash, rental, everything over to you.
Yeah. And it's great because now you can sell it to an investor based off of here's what the actual net is.
Right.
And if you're trying to get this return, here's the price.
Exactly. Yep. That's exactly. It was just strictly based on numbers. It wasn't based on, of course, we had to make sense. These investors, most of them were buying with a lender in place. So the appraisal had to make sense. But it just, the numbers, it was primarily driven based on numbers. We would say, okay, this property is rented for, let's say, $1,500 a month. We'll sell it for $100,000. That's it. It didn't matter what our cost was. Of course, we would make profit on that, but it was strictly based on the numbers.
Yeah. And for a lot of people that are listening, they might be wondering, why would someone buy it this way?
Right.
So why would your clients buy you as a turnkey versus going in there and do it themselves? Because that's what you and I would do.
Right. These are high net worth individual making $400,000-500,000. Some of the investors that we're selling to making $1 million. It's not the best use of their time to go in, find these properties, find contractors, manage the rehab, rent them out, and do the process. They would rather. It's for them, it's like they're diversifying their investment. They have some money in stocks. They have some money in stocks, bonds, and now they're investing in real estate.
Right.
So they know, okay, I'm going to make 10-12% cash on cash. So I'm going to, here you go. I'm going to buy this property. I have a tangible asset. I'm going to make money on this.
Right. And you get to appreciate.
Yeah, and appreciation.
Yeah. That's kind of one of the things, right? If a doctor says, hey, I want to get into this business, the first question is why do you want to be in this business?
Right. Exactly.
You're much better off just doing your thing and just make additional cash flow.
Yep.
Versus taking your time away from what you're best at.
Right. Yeah, but if you have too much money, if you have millions of dollars sitting aside, you're like, hey, I don't know what to do with it. Yes, then turnkey makes sense.
So it's interesting. As a function of going on bigger pockets,
right?
You start a turnkey business.
Yeah, I don't think I would have done it otherwise. Yeah. So just based.
That's a big shout out to Bigger Pockets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was, man. It was fantastic. I had no plans to start turnkey business, but these investors started reaching out hey, I really want to buy a properties. Can you help me? I'm like, okay, then I remember I sold one property from my portfolio because there was like this desperate investor. I was going to make 30,000 on it. I really didn't want to sell it, but I'm like, man, that's $30,000 profit right now. So I sold it to him. I'm like, all right, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to liquidate my portfolio. The whole reason why I bought the rental properties for myself is to have this, like lifestyle, freedom of cash and money, time and money. So then I just really got into turnkey business.
So was a turnkey business now a distraction from the lifestyle you had planned?
Not really. Are you talking about now or back then?
Then, right? Because you just came back from a 5-week vacation where you're buying a property in Africa.
Right.
Now you add a whole new business venture.
It wasn't. It wasn't scaled to. Initially I was only selling like a property a month. 1 to 2 properties a month. So it wasn't like very large scale. But it got to a point where I didn't have systems and processes in the business where it started becoming a distraction. It started feeling like work, so to speak.
Right.
That's when I kind of started putting more systems and, processes into the business. And it just, I'm not very involved in the business. Somebody on my team manages it. But if you don't have good systems and processes, it can be very challenging.
Well, that's the reason why I was asking. Because like in the Whale Club, right, where we have this principle where like when we say yes to something,
we're saying no to something.
Well, we're not just saying no to something. We don't do a good job of conceptualizing what are going to be the additional burdens.
Right.
Like, for example, we hire someone, we think, they're going to make everything easier. We discount the fact that there's a lot of training,
absolutely,
hand holding. They're going to call you with weird questions at weird times. And then that distracts you from your main thing. Right. And not to say that there's anything against hiring. It's just we don't ever take that into account.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was a big learning curve, not knowing what I got myself into. I thought, okay, I'm going to sell these properties to investors at cash flowing, then I'll never have to hear back from them. But the tenant stops paying. They're calling me, hey, Sharad, there was a lease on this property. This tenant isn't paying. What should I do? I'm like, I don't know. Like, we'll have to file an eviction. So you didn't even think about the problems you were going to run into.
Right.
But then people start calling you with weird things. Like, hey, this property, like 6 months later, there's a leak in one of the faucets or toilet is leaking. Like, hey, is it covered by a warranty? I'm like, oh, I didn't even know we had a warranty on this thing. Yeah. So they start calling you, asking you these questions. Then you start figuring out, okay, next time someone asks, like, I need to have an answer for it, before we. So we would put these things in a contract. We'd say, okay, when we sell a property, we would cover for first 6 months. If a tenant leaves for whatever reason, we'll take care of it. We'll make sure we pay you rent for the first 6 months if it were to happen. But after 6 months, it's on you. Or if something were to happen, like, act of God, if it's a storm or a tree falls on your property, that's really nothing that we can control. But if it's something that should have been done before you bought the property,
foreseeable.
Then we would take care of it. Right. So, we started kind of figuring out, as we started getting questions, we started figuring out, okay, what do we need to do? If this happened, let's make sure we set the right expectation for this investor before we get into anything.
Is creating procedures something that came natural for you?
Not really. I'd read, a book. What's that? I can't even remember the name of the book, and it's such a huge influence on me. I'll come back to me, but yeah.
I'm going to throw something out there. Maybe Checklist Manifesto.
That was one of them, but it was another one that, it just completely changed how I started running my business. It's about a guy who goes into a bakery. It's E-Myth, yes. That's E-Myth Revisited. Yeah, that's the one. That had a huge influence on kind of how I started looking at my business. I literally was prepare a checklist. We're doing turnkey. And we said, all right, every house that we're doing has to have the same paint color, same cabinet, same faucet, same toilet, same paint, fixture, everything. And I wasn't doing this before. It just sounds so silly now to think about why wouldn't I do that? But, there was no, in my mind, I thought each house had to look different. And I'm like, why? I just started asking why. The tenants don't care as long as the house is presentable.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares. Exactly. Nobody cares. In my mind, it was just my, limiting belief that each house had to look unique. And once we said, all right, this is the spreadsheet. Anything we're buying, it has to be from this spreadsheet. If it's not, let's just make sure we add it to the spreadsheet and everything is bought from this spreadsheet.
So I'm going to give you a little bit of a nightmare story from my own personal experience with flipping, right? So the people that listen know that I hate flipping, right? So I have this problem, kind of like what you said earlier, of trusting contractors.
Right.
Right. And they're like, hey, what should I do here? I was like, well, you're the one that's flipping all these houses for all these other investors. Like,
Right.
what are they doing? Like, put in what you think, what you're seeing as the trend. Just putting blind faith
Right.
into a relationship.
Right.
And then this unfortunate situation was my mother-in-law's home. Right.
Oh, wow.
And
That's
they're like,
so
yeah, like, you know, like, what do you think would look good for that bathroom? Like, you guys are doing all these remodels.
Right.
And I came back and looked at it. I was like, this is not
Yeah.
what's popular. Right. This is what they put in because I think this is what they had the surplus of.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Right. And so you're talking about like having all these items in place, potentially warehouse somewhere, but at least maybe a list of SKUs.
Right.
So like everyone looks the exact same.
Everyone. Exactly.
And these are kind of things you don't think about until you're flipping at scale. Or,
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. It made a day and night difference. It was like, oh, we didn't even have to think about it. We just had to tell, at that point, we just had to tell the contractor if we're flipping this house or we're turnkey. That's all we had to. If it's a turnkey, it's from a select list of SKUs that we're doing. If it's a flip, we would just like couple of, fancy upgrades we'll do, like granite countertop, we'll put like tile in the bathroom, like those sort of things. Otherwise, if it's a turnkey, straight, everything same. Don't even ask me. This is a scope of work. Just go do it. Don't even ask us like what toilet, what kitchen, what, flooring to use. Like everything needs to be from that checklist.
Right.
Yeah.
That's really smart. So how difficult then was it? Sounds like it wasn't really terribly difficult once you decided to go down this path of creating SOPs.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So when you're talking about flipping, you're talking about predominantly flipping as a turnkey investor. To a turnkey investor, when did you start incorporating virtual assistants?
Virtual assistant wasn't until, so I was living in Chicago until August 2015. My wife, she got a job in Carlsbad, so we decided to move to Carlsbad.
Oh, that's terrible. You had to move to Carlsbad.
I know, man. I know. I miss the weather in Chicago. I miss the snow. Yeah. So we moved to Carlsbad.
For those of you guys who don't know, it's just outside of San Diego.
Oh yeah. For anybody who don't, it's beautiful weather. Yeah, it's 70 degree all year round.
Yeah.
So we moved to Carlsbad, and at this point I was doing about 40, 50 flips a year, like flip, turnkey, retail, mix of both. And then I started looking at my business. I'm like, okay, I need a system. It was working great while I was in Chicago. I could go visit these properties. And then it started also becoming more difficult to find properties from MLS. So I started doing some direct to seller marketing. And once I moved to Chicago, from Chicago to Carlsbad, now I could not just, if there was an issue with the property, I could not just drive down.
Right.
If a plumber called me and said, like previously what would happen is, and it's crazy, I think about it now, what an inefficient system I had. I was living in Chicago. If a plumber called me and said there's a leak, I would literally drive down from downtown Chicago to Indiana, 30 to 45 minutes. I'm like, oh, yep, there's a leak. Let's fix it. Yeah. And once I moved to San Diego, to Carlsbad, I didn't have that option. I couldn't just take a flight and say, so I said, all right, let's call me on video. Call me on video, show me.
Let's
like,
FaceTime
right,
this.
Yeah, let's FaceTime this.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, that makes sense. Like, what's the estimate? So I started looking into this. But I still didn't have like a system as I was scaling to use. And that's when I started looking, okay, what do I need? I'm doing more marketing, I'm sending out direct mail. I want to start buying more direct to seller properties directly from motivated sellers. I didn't have anything. So I started looking at what system would I need to manage my business. Predominantly, everybody back then was using Podio. I just didn't like the idea of Podio. I didn't like to buy this product and then I would still have to go out and buy everything else to integrate into this. So I'm like,
you didn't like to have all the upsells?
Oh no, yeah, I loved it. I was making way too much money. I should have given it to Podio.
Yeah.
I just I remember like people talk about you would have to do Globy Flow, do this, do that. I'm like, I'm not going to do this. Like, this just sounds crazy. So I hired a couple of developers. Like, all right, I'm going to create something for myself, which is going to be focused on direct to seller marketing, but also focus a lot on project management because I was predominantly flipping houses back then. So I hired a couple of developers in 2016 or 17. And then I started looking into, all right, let's just create something. So they created like a product for me that was very specific to my business, not wholesaling, but buying direct to seller and then rehabbing those properties. And then I started going to other local, masterminds. And I'm like, okay, this is what I'm doing. what do you guys think? Just started kind of getting feedback from other investors. But yeah, it was just, I needed a system to run my own business.
So you didn't need virtual assistants until you were creating your own system.
So I hired my virtual assistant. She's still working with me. I hired her in 2017 or 18. She was living in Philippines. Now she lives in Canada. She moved there for her master's degree. She's still working for me. And then I also hired a project manager. She was living about 15 minutes from Carlsbad. So I hired her as an assistant. I had a home office. Her name is Claudia. She's still with me. So I said, Claudia, I need an assistant. I have a home office. Why don't you come work from my home office? She would come in for 5 days. After a week, I'm like, you don't need to come in for 5 days. Just come in 4 days. And then after a week, I'm like, you don't need to come in for 4 days. Just come in for 3 days. After that, I'm like, you know what, Claudia, you're doing a good job. Just work from home. Doesn't matter. And she, amazing person. So she manages my entire house flipping business now. Like, she's the one who helped me find the property. She would do all the due diligence, underwrite it, get all the comps and everything. So she does all of that. And Apple, who's my virtual assistant in Canada now, she does all the lead management stuff. So yeah, I hired Claudia first in 2016, I believe.
Got it. So you hired them to help you scale your operations. Really.
Exactly.
So you build a system to scale your operations. And once you started building your own system,
then I needed people to put in that system.
Right.
Right.
Got it. Okay. So working with a VA, I mean, there's a lot of people that use VAs, right? But you were saying there's kind of something, some challenges, or you have there's some things you've done to build a culture with your VAs.
Right.
What are you doing that's out of the norm or exceptional and making sure you're managing your VAs effectively?
I think what I'm doing is not micromanaging them. Just if I find the right person and they're really great at doing something, then I'm just going to get out of their way and say, hey, you control it, and just will manage everything by numbers. If the numbers make sense, we're moving in the right direction. If not, then we need to tweak what we're doing in our process. But if it's numbers are moving in the right direction, then I don't need to get involved in kind of how they're doing things. I just let them, I just tell them, okay, this is what we need to do. This is our goal that we need to get to. And then they manage the process at that point.
So I think that's everyone's dream.
Right.
Right? To have the VAs that are self-sufficient.
Right.
Come with batteries included, right? So they're already driven and motivated. You don't need to motivate them. You don't need to make sure they're doing their job.
Right.
So that's the dream.
Yes.
How did you go from what a lot of people's nightmares? Like sometimes people can't even get the VAs to show up to an interview that they applied on onlinejobs.ph.
Right.
They went to onlinejobs.ph, you reach out to them, you schedule a job interview, and they don't show up to the job interview.
Right.
So how do you go from managing people that, I won't say not necessarily unaccountable, but remotely, there's just some challenges.
Right.
So how did you go from hiring someone that's you can't even see or meet,
right,
to them being so high functioning
right
members?
I mean, like looking back, we have a process now, in REsimpli for hiring people. But like when I hired Claudia or Apple, to be honest, I didn't have a process. Like I wasn't just ready to hire someone. And honestly, I was just lucky, to find the people that I did. It's just I had a good feeling about them, honestly. Like I don't want to say there was like something that, that just told me about Claudia. Hey, she was going to be friend. I just had a good feeling about her. Like one thing I've realized over years now hiring people is that you can, like, I want to hire people that have the right work ethics, that have the right character. The skill can always be taught. Right. If I hire someone who's highly skilled, but is not honest, I cannot have them go do, hey, can you go talk to Steve, go take one of his coaching courses and learn how to be honest. Stop stealing from the company. There's no course, but I can, if I hire someone who's super motivated, who's willing to learn, I can say, hey, can you go connect with Steve and his team and learn this, sales training. That the skill can be taught, but the character, the work ethics cannot be taught. So I think that's what we focus on now. We want to hire someone who has the right character, right work ethics. And then if they don't have the skill, that's totally fine. We'll put them through the training to get the right skills. And then how we, ensure that they have the right character, it's just, we hire them on a 90-day probation period. And we say, hey, look, we're not expecting you to perform at a high level. We just want to make sure you fit in with the company. You're the right cultural fit, So that's the important thing, that you're the right culture fit, that other people, you enjoy working with the company, and then other people enjoy working with you.
Right.
So one thing we do with all our VAs now is every week, someone on my team checks in with them. Hey, how would you rate your happiness working with us on a scale of 1 to 10? 10 being, this is the best job ever. 1 being, hey, I'm already interviewing. I'm going to give you my 2-week notice next week. So we check in with every single team member and we say, hey, this is
Every week?
every week. And my head of CS reports to me on a weekly basis what the rating is.
Head of CS?
For REsimpli.
Okay.
Yeah.
So head of customer service?
Head of customer service.
And they're checking all the VAs that
All
are
the
working at the company.
Correct.
How are they feeling?
How are they feeling? Like it's like how happy they are.
So you have an employer NPS score going out every week.
Every week. Yeah.
That's incredible. I've never heard that.
Yeah, we check in every week, and then I check in with the head of our CS team. Hey, how are you feeling?
Mm-hmm.
And I say every day, like I do a one-on-one call with them. I mean, not one-on-one, but we do a team call, and I say every day to them, hey, if you're not happy with me for any reason, just tell me. It's not, I don't have my ego involved here. Like what we're building here is bigger than anyone individually. We're creating something bigger than all of us here. So if you tell me, hey, Sharad, you suck how you run this meeting, I'm not going to be offended. I just make sure that I replace myself with someone else who's going to do a better job than me.
Right.
But we want to make sure you're absolutely honest in giving us a rating. That if you lie to us, then there's nothing we can do. But if you tell us honestly, hey, I rate 7, then we want to say, okay, why is it 7? Why not 10? What could we have done to make this a 10?
Right.
If it's just a busy week, we get a lot of tickets from our customers or whatnot, then we'll make sure we have other people involved. We've gotten to the point we've hired additional people, so nobody's overworked or anything like that. But yeah, that's a weekly score that we get from every single team member.
It's a super tight feedback system.
Yeah.
Is it a conversation or is it a web form?
A conversation.
Conversation.
Yeah.
Every week, someone's having a conversation with one of your VAs.
Yes.
1 to 10.
1 to 10.
Awesome.
Yeah. And checking in every week, like 30-minute one-on-one with every VA on our team.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So going back to character and work ethic.
Right.
How are you screening for character and work ethic? Because those are the most important things, right? Like
Yes.
if you're willing to work hard,
right?
You're willing to work hard and you're coachable, like
yes,
anything's possible.
Exactly. Anything is possible at that point. There's no skill that you cannot learn.
Right.
Absolutely none.
Yeah.
So what we look for is if someone refers, someone who's been with us for a couple of years, we absolutely love them. If they refer another employee to us, we know that other employee is going to be a rock star too.
Pretty likely.
Yeah, pretty likely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had some bad experiences also.
Mm-hmm.
But we go based on that, right?
Right.
And then when we're interviewing, we'll ask, we'll get a good feeling based on the interview, how they're presenting themselves, and then, how detail oriented they are. If you want to make sure it's a VA job, we'll put at the end of the job listing that, hey, when you apply to this job, just put I'm awesome in the title. If they don't, we don't even look at that application.
Yeah.
So we do certain things like that. And just talking to them, asking them, hey, what is important for you? Why would you want to work for us, not for anybody else? What is it that you are looking to get out of this employment?
Mm-hmm.
Is it you're looking to make the most money that you can, or you're looking for a work-life balance? You're looking for a place where you can feel part of something bigger? At the end of the day, we have to ask the people that we're hiring, why do you want to work? What would make this job, absolutely best job ever?
Right.
What would have to happen? And then we make sure the answers that they give us aligns with our culture that we're trying to build.
Sure. And I totally get that. But people also lie in their interviews.
They do. Yeah, they do. I mean, then we let go of them.
Right.
We just have to move on. We have our team members that we have them do use HubStaff, for example. So one of the team members was using this software that will just keep clicking to show that they're active. So we had one-on-one conversation with him. He said, hey, this is only one time and one time only that you get away with this. If it happens again, we will not have this conversation. We'll just, terminate your employment.
Yeah.
And we told him, look, we're not expecting you to always be busy. No, that's not the purpose of this. The purpose of this is so we can manage our workforce. We make sure if someone is working at 70, 80% efficiency, that's not sustainable. That's not, it's the person will just break down after a couple of weeks of just constantly on calls or meetings. So we want to make sure if that's happening with you, we reach out to you and say, Let's say it's you, Steve. We say, hey, Steve, we noticed that last 3 weeks you've been like 80% efficiency. That's not sustainable. Let's make sure we get you some help. Is there something we can take off your plate? So once we had that conversation, I think we didn't set the right expectations.
Right.
The employee came in and thought he just had to be super efficient, but that was not the goal. So once we did that, he understood and it's like, hey, I appreciate you having this conversation. So making sure like setting right expectation, and it's an ever evolving process, right? We'll learn something that happens with one team member and like, oh, we didn't expect that. And we make it part of our process. So always keep improving the process to make sure if a mistake happens, it only happens one time and one time only.
So you feel like asking the questions, there's no particular questions or no particular answers that tells you that someone's got a high work ethic?
I mean, if you ask them, hey, what's the most important thing from this job? And if they say, all right, I want to work 8 hours, make the most money possible, then, right off the bat, it's not the right fit. So we have our VA, and one of the VAs that we hired, we said, okay, if we're going to, we want you to start taking calls with our customers, for example. Said, all right, if I want to do customer-facing work, then I want to make more money. Like, but you haven't proven yourself that you can even actually do that. It's like, no, if I'm going to do this, I want to make more money. So we just said, all right, this is not going to work out.
Focus in their language.
Yeah, exactly. The focus on their language. So now we make sure, we have those questions on the interview when we're looking for a candidate.
One of the questions we used to ask, we don't really ask anymore. I was like, if you made $150,000 your first year, what are you doing? And they're like, oh, I'm going to go on this amazing vacation. This and I was like, okay, they're already like.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I mean, you can just tell based on the answer or just like, it's something on how they show up to the interviews also that you can tell, how they're going to, part of our culture.
Right. So we highlighted here working less than an hour a week. Right. Working on your real estate business less than an hour a week, but you've flipped 50 houses at some point.
Right. Doing about 20-25
right now, today.
Yeah. Today, yeah.
Right. But you already have other operations in places. So how are you able to keep the operation going, working an hour a week? In that, like, having your brain dedicated an hour a week in the other operation.
It's like hiring the right people. Like Claudia, she's the project manager, or I would say like CEO of the house flipping business. So between her and Apple, Claudia lives in California, Apple lives in Canada, and then we have a house flipping business in Indiana. We don't have anyone local, but we built systems and processes in place that Claudia manages, Apple manages, and they take care of everything. I get involved in a 15-minute huddle in the morning, which it's on my calendar for 15 minutes, but it hardly lasts for like 5 minutes. And that's kind of I check in, hey, everything going okay? Like, what leads are working, what lead are not working, and I'll just kind of tweak that.
Yeah.
And my biggest involvement is like making sure we always have the money for the properties we need. And then, that the numbers make sense.
Okay, so say it again. What are you responsible for your real estate turnkey business?
My responsibility is making sure we have always the money available for the number of properties that we want to buy.
That's your number one?
That's my number one, yeah.
How do you do that?
I have a line of credit, and then I have money set aside, for the projects, for specifically for the house flipping business, to make sure that we always have funds available. And then building, relationships with other private money lenders, just making sure that when we need the money, if we have like 2 or 3 properties that we're looking to buy, we always have the funds readily available.
So your core responsibility is being the money guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I sign the buy side and sell side closing documents.
Right.
That's pretty much it.
So I can't remember where I heard this, but something along the lines like if you can only be on the phone for 15 minutes a week,
right,
to check in your business, what would you need to know, right? So for you and your business working an hour a week, what do you need to know in that business?
What do I need to know is, so we have a pretty automated system. Like it's one of the reasons why I built REsimpli is to have everyone on my team be using the same system. So I check in kind of where, so going back to the books that we're talking about, like the Checklist Manifesto was a huge, a book that had a huge influence on kind of how I operate my business. So having like checklists for everything, making sure that we have these processes, hey, this happens in our business, then there are some tasks automatically assigned to everyone on our team that they're getting done. As long as they're getting done, then everything is moving along. So for me, My time is best spent on making sure we have the money available and we have the right process built out. So if there's something that needs to be tweaked with the process, then I'll do that. But outside of that, just making sure we have the right process and money available.
So the rest of it really is just having a dashboard.
Exactly.
Like I'm really simplifying because we're going to get into REsimpli in a moment.
Yeah.
But really it's just having a dashboard.
Having a dashboard. Correct.
Right. Okay. And that's powerful. Having a dashboard gives you a lot of confidence.
Yeah, because like people will lie, right? Numbers never lie. There's like one thing, numbers are like 2 + 2 will always be 4. It will never be 5. It will never be 3. It will never be 3.9.
It depends who you talk to these days. Yes, mostly.
Yeah, exactly. Mostly. Talking to any sane person, 2 + 2 will always be 4.
Yeah.
So if I'm talking to my team and say, hey, we spent 10,000, we made 0 money. It doesn't matter what your gut is about that marketing channel. It did not work for us. It's as simple as that. We need to move on.
Yeah.
And then if we had 50 leads come in, no appointment, what happened? Then I'll go through, if something like that happens, I'll go through the leads and see, okay, why did these leads not convert into an appointment or an offer?
Just like we were talking about earlier, your accounting background and like, hey, we're going to do this.
Right.
Because we're going to make our decisions based off of numbers.
Right.
We're going to buy these properties based off of numbers. We're going to turnkey and we're going to sell these properties based off of numbers. Like there's a theme here.
There is. Yeah, I mean, it's my accounting background. It's just like relying on numbers. I could be anywhere. I could be sitting anywhere. We have team in 4 different countries now for REsimpli, right? It doesn't matter. Like everybody, we make decisions based on numbers and numbers only. If you come and tell me, hey, I have a really good feeling about, no, show me the numbers, for a good feeling. Yes, I mean, if you're really doubtful about what decision to make, we'll go with something that we feel pretty good about if you have no data. But let's just go based on the data. If you tell me, hey, everyone on our CS team is happy, show me the score to prove it. That's the only way to prove it.
That's why you do the weekly NPS scores.
Exactly, for our team members. Like, show me that everyone is happy. If they're not, why are they not happy? Like, what is it about working with us that they're not happy about? Let's make sure we work on it. Is it something that we control or they have the right expectations?
Yeah, I think that's incredibly powerful. Like, it's not sexy.
It's not.
Incredibly effective.
Yeah. And then team members feel heard. So I'm actually flying out to Philippines in a couple of months. I've never met anyone in my Philippines team. We have like a dozen of people working for us now. So I'm flying out to Philippines and I said, hey, I want you guys to decide where should we meet. I'm only going to be there for 4 days, but you decide where do we want to meet? How do we want to have the best time? And so everyone is excited about that. That's part of the culture that we're building. So you want to make sure that they feel heard in every way possible, right? If they say, hey, I want to make $50 an hour, so then you have to find another job. We can't afford that. But if you have the right expectations, given kind of what you're bringing to the table, we'll make sure that this is absolutely the best, job for you ever.
Gotcha. I like it. So before we go back to the CRM, you own 50 properties free and clear.
45 units are free and clear. 5 I have dead on. Yeah.
Okay. That flies against the face of every real estate investing book.
It does.
What is the reason and rationale for that?
Dave Ramsey. Yeah. He had a huge influence on kind of how I started thinking about money. So like, again, being accounting background, really being into personal finance, I started following a lot what Dave Ramsey, read his books, what he was talking about, Susie Orman. But for some reason, I think it was also influenced by back in 2008, 10, 12, kind of what happened with the real estate markets. It was just people were over leveraged. I think that had an influence in kind of why I gravitated towards Dave Ramsey and how that influenced in my marketing and my investment strategy. I mean, I have an accounting degree. I totally understand. I could leverage and have 200 units, but that's not something that I'm comfortable with. I would much rather have, even the loan that I have on 5 units, I think the total loan is about 50,000. So I could just pay it off, but it's like 5% interest. So I'm like, I'm going to keep it.
Right.
But I totally understand that I could, instead of 50 free and clear units, I could have 200 units with loans on them. But that's not something that I'm comfortable with. I want to be able to just have a peace of mind on knowing, okay, if the property is not rented out, I'm not in any distress or about, hey, let's just find the best tenant we can right now. I just make sure we make the right decision. I'm not in any stress. I have free cash flow coming in. I don't have to worry about banks or anything. So that's just what I feel comfortable. It doesn't make financial sense. It does not, it does not help me make the most money possible with the money that I have. But that's something I feel totally comfortable with. I could increase my return on equity if I wanted to, but That's not in my goal.
You can make more money,
Absolutely.
but the peace of mind is far more valuable
100%.
than the more money.
100%.
Do you think, because you were saying you were born in India,
Yes.
do you think being born in another country influenced this mindset?
I'm sure it does. Yeah, I don't know how, but I don't see how it would not influence kind of how I think, coming from a very conservative background.
Yeah.
It has to, right?
Right.
And so I'm not definitely, I totally understand I could be making a lot more money with my rental portfolio, but that's not my
Well,
goal.
I bring this up because, right? Even though I wasn't born here, I'm pretty much red blood in America, right? And you read the books, and the books like Maximum Leverage, right? And they have like the seesaw,
right?
Diagram and this and that, like max leverage, max leverage. And you're reading all these books. I'm reading all these books in 04, 05, 06, right?
Right.
And then I get into real estate and I watch everyone crash and burn. Not everyone, like 90+% of people crash and burn. And then I see who's standing.
Right.
And everyone that's left standing is free and clear.
Yes.
Everyone's free and clear. And then what happens? Now I'm a realtor at this point because I was too dumb to understand how, like financing. So I'm a realtor and I'm helping everyone else buy all these properties.
Right.
Cash. And then I also see not only are they buying all these properties cash, because they're buying all these properties cash and the market is so depressed, they're cash flowing so much.
Right.
They can just keep buying a property cash every single month.
Right.
And I was like, okay. So there's the book theory.
Right.
And then there's like what happens in reality when the market just takes a giant dump.
Right.
And it's not that the market will take a giant dump on a regular basis, but it happens.
It happens. Yeah.
Right. And then where are you? Like, how naked are you?
Right.
If you're over leveraged, or if you're not even over leveraged, if you're 20, 30% leveraged.
Right.
What do you do?
Absolutely. And then I think, Steve, you make a really good point. When you said before, for me personally, like peace of mind is way more valuable. So when you're looking at investment, there's one school of thought is just look at the return on investment. But you have to look at return on investment, return on your time also, and then how much you value peace of mind. Everybody is going to have different, thoughts around it. Right. For me, peace of mind is way more important than making the most money. It's not my goal. I have a very conservative lifestyle, more than happy with the lifestyle that I have. Even if I make additional money, it's just going to go into bank account,
Right.
So I'm happy with kind of where I'm at. So I think valuing peace of mind with valuing ROI, you have to see kind of what's more important for you.
Yeah, you got to figure out what's most important to you.
Yeah.
And the reason I was bringing up the immigrant part is because my parents went through this, right? It's like my dad understood this, but my mom refused to let him do it because she's like, this is too risky. Like, I don't want to risk money, right? And then I'm married, and my wife also believes in free and clear.
Right.
And I'm like, you know how much money we're leaving on the table?
Right.
Like, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Peace of mind. Like, she is not worried at all, right? When everything crashes, we still have money coming in.
Yeah.
Every single month covers our bills.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, like, just it's amazing. Like, there's no words to put that, feeling into words. Like how amazing it feels. Like not have to worry about that.
Right.
And just knowing it's a decision that I've intentionally make that highest ROI, making the most money is not the most important thing for me. Just having peace of mind, being able to do what I want to do when I want to do, that's most important for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Like buying properties in Africa.
Yeah.
While you're in the middle of Africa.
Yeah.
Okay. So you created REsimpli.
Right.
Right. Which, I have multiple people that we've mentored in the past that have like, yeah, this is what I use. I love it. It makes my life easier.
Right.
Right. So did you start this with the intent of having it be a service, or was this like, hey, this is what I need? And people are like bothering you, like, hey, I need this. I need this.
It started out with something that I needed for myself.
Yeah.
It was, yes, when I started the company, I thought, okay, it would be great if other people used it and paid for it.
It would be cool.
It would be cool.
Right.
But if it does nothing else and helps me, buy a couple of more properties a year, will pay for itself. It was just, again, mathematical decision. It'll just pay for itself.
Numbers.
The numbers would make sense, the money that I'm investing in this. So
what was your initial investment?
Oh man, it was nowhere enough what I thought I needed to spend in this.
Yeah.
I thought I'd just hire a couple of, what you said. It's funny what you said about the contractors. Hey, just do what's right. I did the same thing with the developers.
Yeah.
So just build it.
Yeah.
Just build me a product. Oh my God, that was such a stupid thing to do. Just telling the developers to just build. So I thought I would hire a couple of developers for a couple of months and that would be the end of it.
Mhm.
No,
Right.
no, that was not the case. Yeah.
So I guess, what did you expect it to be to develop it initially?
Oh, I thought like no more than 3 to 6 months. I said, I would just tell the developers, this is what I need. They would exactly understand what I need. And I said, okay, just do this. Show me in a month what you have, and we'll just go from there.
And your expectation in reality, like, was it like off by a factor of 10, off by?
Oh, it was like we started from scratch. Yeah, we literally started from scratch. The people that I hired initially to build this, after about a year and a half, no jokes, I said, no, I'm just starting fresh.
Mhm.
And it was my fault. Like, I don't want to blame the developers. It was totally my fault. I didn't go in with the right expectation. I thought I would tell these people that I'd hired, hey, just please, can you build this? And then I'll see you in 6 months, deliver the product, and then, we'll live happily ever after.
So we did OfferFast, right? We created
Right.
our own app for a little bit. And I have the good fortune that all 5 of my younger brothers are all software developers. So it made OfferFast a lot easier to develop.
Right.
And so the second oldest, he works at Amazon, and he actually worked at a department that reports directly to Jeff Bezos' like special like projects.
Okay.
So like he's like top
Right.
at Amazon, right? I was like, hey, here's what we want. And I'm telling you, the hours of questions he asked me
Right.
about this page,
Yes.
that page, this pull down. I was like, do you really need to know all of this?
Yeah.
And he's like, you want to answer it now,
Right.
or be upset with the product later on,
Yeah.
and then I rebuild it.
Right.
Like, I guess I'd rather be frustrated with you now.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, Steve.
And that was
is-
probably your experience.
Oh, Steve, 100%. Your brother is so smart. Like, he did the right thing.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it was my experience. And I was so naive. I said, I'm just going to tell the developers, this is what I need. They'll create it.
Mhm.
It's like going to a restaurant and telling the chef, I want to have this pasta, and they
Mhm.
bring it out. You don't have to tell them exactly how much salt to put, how much sugar,
All on the
and
boil
all.
the noodles.
Yeah, exactly. That they should know, but that was not the case.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they showed me something. I'm like, what is this, guy? What is this? This is not what I wanted.
Right.
Yeah. So we literally started the product from scratch after about a year and a half of like not doing it the right way. Again, I want to take full responsibility on how the expectations that I had, I just completely screwed up on it.
Mhm.
So then the second time around we started, I was more involved. I said, okay, this is what we need. This is what it needs to look like. This is what it should do.
Mhm.
So like then for a couple of years, I just used it just for myself. Everything that we built, just use it just for myself. Then I started going to masterminds. We would do hot seat presentations and show people, hey, this is kind of what my numbers look like. Again, the most important thing with what we built was the data, the KPIs. So I would show other investors, like, oh, this is cool. What is this? Like, oh, this is something I built. Like, oh, I would be interested. I just felt so, insecure about what I'd built. I'm like, it works for my business, but there's no way possible it would work for other people. Like, it just, like, it doesn't seem right. Something that I built for my business, other people would be able to get value out of it. You just have this insecurity about kind of, it's taking you have a newborn, you take the newborn out, and then you don't want anybody to say, hey, your baby's ugly. You want,
Right.
oh, this is like the cutest baby ever. So I always felt like, oh no, I have to just think a little bit more. I have to do this, I have to do that. Just then in end of 2019, I'm like, all right, we're just going to open it up for few people just to use it as, beta project. So we started getting feedback. Oh, this is awesome, and then we started getting feedback, just kind of, kept developing more from there on.
Was this investor fuel? Which
No,
masterminds
this
were you in?
was Sharper Leadership with Gary Harper.
Sharper leadership?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So your vision when you started this, what functionality were you hoping when you first launched it, like the first iteration of it?
The very, very first iteration was project management, built specifically for my
Project
business.
management meaning like we've got this property
The flips.
that we own.
Yeah. No,
From-
the flips that we have going on.
Right.
So manage the flips properties that we bought.
But I mean like properties you've acquired.
yes,
The
exactly.
properties you acquired from when you acquired it to when it was delivered as a turnkey.
Correct.
That was the functionality.
That was the functionality. And managing scope of work.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then you can manage basically a flip
Correct.
inside your CRM.
Correct. It was never, initial version never started out with a CRM. I didn't even know what CRM was.
Okay.
It never started. It started
So
out
it was just, I want to see
my business.
progress on all my flips.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
That was the first iteration.
That was the first iteration. That completely
And that took more than a year and a half.
more than a year and a half.
Okay.
So there's wasted money, wasted time.
Yeah.
I don't want to say wasted time. It's something that I learned from that process.
You had the
but
experience.
The experience, yeah. I got education out of it. Let's just say for 18 months.
Expensive education.
Expensive education, yeah.
Okay. So now we can say for all these different addresses, we can see from when we acquired it to when it's sold, and then all the different like permitting, electrical work.
Exactly.
When's it rented, this and that.
Exactly. All of that.
Okay. Then what was the next iteration?
Next iteration was around the time I started doing more direct seller marketing.
Mm-hmm.
So we're still doing project management, but
Right.
then it had the CRM part of it also, managing your leads,
Mm-hmm.
your motivated seller leads, and then ability to call them, text them from within the system.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that we started out beginning, with REsimpli was I wanted to see everyone on my team be on the same software. Everyone should be on the same software,
Okay.
using one software.
So if you
Everyone
work at your company, what do you call that, your company?
My house flipping,
Yeah.
Max Properties.
Max Properties. So if you work at Max Properties,
Yes,
everyone is logging into REsimpli.
exactly. Yes, everything from calling a lead, texting a lead, pictures, videos, communicating internally. Everything should be in the. Even my bookkeeper and accountant are also. Everything is in REsimpli now.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So that was the vision. That's where we are right now.
Gotcha.
Everything we're building now, creating now, it's grown way beyond my business. Way beyond my business. We have people doing dozens of deals a month using our platform. And it's just like evolved way beyond what I needed for my business.
Right.
So everything we're developing now is based on what other people are requesting. Larger teams are requesting, like, hey, I would need this feature, that feature. It would help my business in this way. So that's kind of what we're developing now.
Right. So, but going back, the functionality is you can plug into multiple marketing
Right.
channels.
Correct.
Or marketing mediums.
Right.
So you could do from there direct mail,
Cold calling,
cold calling,
no texting.
no texting.
Right.
But you can manage websites, PPC,
Right.
SEO.
Right. Your vendors, your buyers, everything.
So all your relationships, everything is
Correct.
in here.
Correct.
So then let's say I got an address in there.
Right.
Or I got I pull a list from, let's say, Investment Machine, right?
Right.
Pull a list. How do I incorporate that into REsimpli?
So once you pull the list, you put it into REsimpli list stacking.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You stack your list. Then you can cold call from within REsimpli. You can send direct mail.
Mm-hmm.
And you can get your buyer, seller website all within the system.
Mm-hmm.
And you send direct mail, you do cold calling, you can buy different tracking numbers. And if a lead calls in, you know exactly what marketing campaign they called in from. If you're doing direct mail to probate list, you're doing direct mail to tax list, you can know exactly what marketing campaign they're calling from. So you can know for every dollar that you're putting into each marketing channel, exactly what your ROI is. So for every dollar you put in, how much money you're making at the end of the day.
Right.
Yeah. So that's what it does.
Yeah. So you've got basically an automated ROI calculator in there as well.
Correct.
So from there, you know this is what the return is.
Right. Your
on
cost
each
per
one.
lead, cost per deal, ROI. Yeah.
So you don't need to download it or extract it or nothing.
Correct.
Click in there.
Click in there. Yeah. You can see how long everyone in your team, how many offers they made, how many appointments they've been on,
All the KPIs,
all the KPIs.
all the reporting is right there.
Correct. You can click on, if someone says, I've been on 10 appointments, in-person appointments, phone appointments, drive-by appointments, you can click and see exactly all the appointments that they went on. Did they actually keep the appointment or did they not keep it?
Right.
You can see the leaderboard, how much revenue each person brought into the business. What is their average call duration, how long they were on the phone for, how many text messages they sent out.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay. So, and you're creating this, you said this is for your business.
Correct.
And now you got other people requesting additional, what's the word? Not add-ons, but additional functionality.
Correct.
Inside it.
Right.
So what is your plan? What is the roadmap for the additional functionality?
the roadmap for the additional functionality is like building out more of the core functionality, right? Like the calling features. So you can call, you can make outgoing call, you can receive incoming call. The next iteration, the next update that's going to come out next month is you'll be able to listen in, like do call monitoring. You know, we have people that have like large sales team. They want to be able to listen into a call. They want to be able to speak to their sales agent. You know, they want to barge into a call. So those are the features that are coming in next month. And then also attaching your incoming emails. Right now, you can only do outgoing emails. With the next update, you will be able to receive emails within the system also. So if you have Gmail or Outlook, you can receive emails, right? So you don't have to log into Gmail or Outlook. All your emails will come right within REsimpli.
So in your vision, they'll never have to leave REsimpli.
Ideally, yes.
Yeah. Okay. And you said something fascinating. You have clients who don't even use QuickBooks anymore.
Correct.
They just do everything within REsimpli.
Correct.
How is that even feasible?
What do you mean?
I mean, you're basically competing against Intuit, right? Like they bought, I don't know how many years ago they bought QuickBooks, right? But I mean, like that is a corporate, that's a giant corporation.
Right.
Right? Like Intuit is not a small entity. Now, even though they're not a small entity, maybe because they're such a big entity, their customer service is horrific and their functionality is always like, you know, it seems like years behind.
Right.
But still, it's a massive, it's the elephant in the room.
But when you think about
gorilla in the room.
But when you think about QuickBooks, right? QuickBooks is not built for real estate investors.
Correct.
It's built for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And it ends up being awesome for no one. It's like good enough for everyone, but it's really not solving a specific industry need. So let's say we're using QuickBooks, right? You're a real estate investor. And I say, Steve, you're using QuickBooks. And I say, Steve, can you go into QuickBooks and tell me exactly, without leaving QuickBooks, what is your ROI on direct mail? What is your ROI on cold calling? You cannot do that.
Absolutely not.
Exactly. If I ask you, just going into QuickBooks, you tell me cost per lead and cost per deal. Can you do that?
No.
Right. That's what we do. Like you don't. So think of this. Imagine your bookkeeper is doing what they need to do. They don't have to know anything about anything else. Like accounting is account. It's a science, right? It's debit and credit. So you just go in, you say, all right, I have this expense coming in. This expense was for ABC Marketing Company for this direct mail for this campaign. That's all you have to do. When you make the money, our system would automatically attach it to, if you sell 123 Main Street property, you made 50,000. We already know what marketing campaign 123 Main Street belongs to. You don't have to export anything, link any spreadsheets. You say I made 50,000. Our system already knows the 123 Main Street came from direct mail property. So it would update the cost per lead, cost per deal, and ROI automatically without you exporting anything, without you using any other software. So that's where the limitation of QuickBooks coming. Like QuickBooks would do the bookkeeping. It would give you some reports, but those are not reports that are relevant to investors.
No.
What we're doing is very, very specific to investors. You know, we go in, like even the language that we use, like you go into QuickBooks, it talks about class. You know, like investors don't talk about class. Like I don't ask you, hey, Steve, how much money did you make on that class, right? I ask you, how much money did you make on the property? That's what we use. You know, what property this expense belongs to. So it's very simple way to just manage your books on your own. And yeah, I mean, once people start using it, that's honestly the last piece that people feel comfortable with because they have this mindset of, oh, there's no way I can replace QuickBooks. But once they do, and they get this insight into this business, they're like blown away. Just by click of a button, they can see exactly how much money they're making from each marketing channel. Yeah. That's the most powerful thing ever. Like knowing if I'm spending $1 in marketing, right? You could be spending, let's say, $200,000 in marketing and you're making, let's say, $500,000 on it, right? Do you know that you really need to spend $200,000 to make 500? Could you only spend 150 and make 500, right? That's the stuff most of the investors have no idea about, right? They say, you know, they're making 7 figures. They talk about the top revenue numbers. They're saying, oh, I make 7 figures revenue. But how much did you keep of that? Did you keep, 40% of that, 5% of that? Well, what's the point of making $1 million in revenue when you're only taking home 50,000? Would you not much rather make 800,000 and your take home is 250, 300? You have a much leaner, more efficient business. But people have no idea. Like it's very difficult to use all these different systems, right? You have QuickBooks. QuickBooks doesn't speak with your CRM. right? You have to export data from QuickBooks, you have to export data from your CRM, and then have someone match up all the data. And you have to keep doing it over and over again. It doesn't give you in real time.
Right.
But our system does that in real time. Like
Yeah.
you spend money on a marketing channel, it updates your KPIs in real time. So a lot of the investors would have KPIs on their dashboard, on their big screen. And then as they get an appointment, as they get an meeting or whatever, it just updates in real time as they spend any money, make any money. They know exactly kind of what's going on with their revenue.
I mean, I like the fact that it sounds like this expense is tied to a list or is tied to a channel.
Right.
And when you get a property, when you lock a property up, you already know from the campaign,
right,
what list,
exactly,
what channel.
Exactly. So if I ask you, Steve, what do you think the biggest expense for a typical real estate investor is?
Well,
on their P&L.
Should be. It's usually staff or marketing.
Right. It's one of those two. Mostly, I would say marketing. Right. So that's where imagine if you can be, 15-20% better on your marketing. That's a very, very easy number to attain. Right. Once you start looking at how much money you're spending on each marketing, let's say, we have a lot of investors that are doing radio ads or TV ads, for example. So we tell them, hey, if you're doing radio ads, let's say you're going on 2 different radio stations, use 2 different tracking numbers. Let's say you spend like $5,000 on radio ads on 2 different radio stations. You use the same phone number. You make $20,000. You're like, fantastic. I spent $5,000. I made $20,000. Let's just keep doing more of. We say, hold on. Well, which radio station did you make money from? Do you know? Do you even need to spend money on both radio stations? Could you do one? Or you do direct mail. You send out 5,000 pieces of direct mail, right? You have your probate list. You have your absentee list. You just use one number. You spend, let's say, $2,500 mailing to that list. You make money. You make $10,000. You're like, fantastic. 4x return. I need to do more of it. And the question is, hey, was it the probate list that made you money or the absentee list? Right? Should you even be mailing to both lists? Right? So that's where we help you exactly with what marketing channel is working. You might realize that you're spending, off the 5,000 mailing list, you only had 1,000 on probate, 4,000 on absentee. So you spend like $500 on your probate, and that's the one that you made money on. So it's your return is not $2,500 to $10,000. It's actually $500 to $10,000. So, but you need to keep repeating the process. You cannot just do it, one time and then based on that. But if you have numbers over 3 or 4 mailings, and you look at 3 or 4 mailings, and you're like, I consistently make money from probate list. I don't make any money from absentee, or not nearly enough for it to be scalable. Now, let's say you're going into another market. You have the data to make a decision, I should go with probate list in this market because I've proven that I can make money from probate list in market A. If I'm going in market B, at least I'm basing my decision based on numbers, not based on a gut feeling, not based on a theory that, hey, absentee list works. I'm going based on the data that I have to prove that I have 10x ROI on my probate list. So I'm going to start with that and see how that works in different market and then just kind of scale from there.
Gotcha. If someone wanted to learn more about REsimpli, how would they?
They can go to REsimpli.com, REsimpli.com.
Simple enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So for you got multiple ventures going on. What is your why?
That's a good question. I'm actually working with a coach right now to kind of help me get clarity on that. I think at this point, it's about the people that we have in our team. I think with what we're doing, with the plan that we have, I feel like we can make a generational financial impact in their life. So I think that's the most exciting part, especially having people, in overseas, in Philippines or India, like with what we're doing, I have some numbers in mind once whatever we decide to do with the company, with the long term, then I want to make sure that the people that have been with us for a long time, that they're financially incentivized. And it's like life-changing money for them.
Yeah.
So that's the most exciting part is the people that have been with us in the company and just changing their life.
That's cool. What's your biggest struggle right now?
Is building culture across people in different countries speaking different languages. That's that's the biggest struggle right now.
How are you addressing it?
I'm flying out to Philippines in a couple of months. I'm going to India after that, and then we have some team members in Bangladesh. So I'm going to Philippines, Bangladesh, and India just to meet people in person. So, but we'll have like, great culture in the CS team. We'll have great culture in, with the Bangladesh team, India team, but not a company-wide culture. So that's the part that I'm struggling with, and I don't have an answer for that yet. That's what I'm working with. One of the things that I'm working with a coach on is like, how do we, build a culture around it?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably a problem that most bigger companies deal with, right? Because like most people they're either here or they're here in the Philippines or they're here in South America, right? But they're not normally in like multiple countries.
Yep.
So yeah, I imagine that one's going to be a tougher nut to crack.
That's a tough one. I don't have any answers to that.
Yeah, and it takes a strong leadership to really maintain multiple locations, let alone multiple locations speaking different languages.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How do you stay motivated?
I read a lot. Recently, I've been reading a lot about Stoicism, and I'm absolutely like fascinated with that.
Yeah.
And then I meditate and I journal every day.
Reading Stoicism, I imagine, and I'm just kind of based off, quick read here, quick personality read. I mean, I imagine that probably was already in alignment with how you already orient your life.
To some extent, but having it's more about like, yes, a lot of that I was already doing, but when you read it and it's about like reiterating the same principles over and over again, like, based on, Stoicism books that I've read, I literally have daily rules to live by note for myself. So I read it every day. First thing in the morning when I get up, I read it every day just to kind of keep reminding me every day, hey, this is kind of what I need to focus on. It helps tremendously in my personal life, business life, in every way.
For people that aren't familiar with Stoicism, you want to elaborate on what that is?
Sure. It's a old Greek philosophy popularized by Marcus Aurelius. He was a Roman emperor for about 20 years, and he wrote these journals to himself, not for anybody else. He wrote these to himself, and they survived the time. And now, it's a book, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius.
Yeah,
it's absolutely fascinating, like the most powerful book that I've ever read.
Yeah, I need to go through it again. Apparently, I read the wrong one.
They have so many different translations of it.
Yeah, because I've had so many people like, oh, you gotta read it, and I got an audio book version.
Right.
I was like, that was okay. And like I offended someone so strongly. A team member, he's like, all right, I'm gonna give you the book that I read.
Right.
This is the right one.
Yeah.
Like disregard the other one. But I mean, Stoicism obviously is powerful. It's I think if you look at different personality profiles, a Stoic, I would look at kind of someone that's a high S profile on the disc.
Right.
Right. And then you look at like we were talking about poker earlier, Phil Ivey. Did you ever watch him?
Yeah.
Right. Like that guy doesn't need lessons on Stoicism. Like, that guy's just stoic.
Right. Exactly.
He's a statue.
Yeah.
At all times.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's for those guys who are looking for an example. Like someone that is super calm, and like what happens.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
It's just the whole principle of Stoicism is you just worry about the things that are in your control.
Yeah.
That's it.
Right.
Like I have a flight this evening to San Diego. If it gets canceled, the only thing I have in my control is to show up to the airport on time. Anything outside of that is not in my control.
Right.
The same thing in our business, right? Like we don't necessarily control how happy our user is, for example. Like we don't control if they give us a 5-star rating or not. We only control the effort that goes in to what we can do to make them happy, right? We can only control that we can get back to our user on time. We give them the right response to their question. That's the only thing we control. Whether they give us a 5-star rating or not, that's absolutely out of it. Yes, we just want to make sure we're doing the things that we can. But if the outcome doesn't align with our effort, either the effort isn't what we're putting is not right, or the outcome that we're expecting is not right. The only thing it comes down to is just controlling what's in your control, just worrying about the things that are in your control.
Yeah, and I think it's a powerful lesson. As a matter of fact, something that I actually was talking to my daughter with yesterday. She was upset about something. Like, well, you can't control how other people feel.
Yeah.
All you control is how you responded.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, just like even something simple, it talks about you have the power to not have an opinion about something. Like imagine how liberating that is.
Yeah.
Like I'm not on any social media. I'm not on Instagram, TikTok. I have Facebook account, but only for our, REsimpli group. But outside of that, I don't do any social media. Like I don't follow any sport. I could not name you any NFL player right now.
Yeah.
I could not. Like I stopped watching once Peyton Manning retired. But I don't follow any. Like it just feels so liberating. It just feels so light that I don't have to worry about anything. I mean, I would just get so involved in each player's contract, and I'm like, Sharad, you're not getting a percentage of their contract. Why do you care about it? And once I started thinking about it, I'm like, it doesn't matter. And then I don't have to have an opinion about everything.
Yeah. Something I learned from Darren Hardy was like, imagine if you cared about your success as much as you care about the other athlete's success.
Yes. Imagine that.
Yeah.
If just focus on things you can control and they just work towards it every single day, imagine where you would be. Right. That's what I try to focus on, things that are in my control. It's much easier said than done. I just want to be very clear. It's much easier said than done. I don't just get up in the morning like, oh yeah, this is not in my, no, it doesn't. But it's just about keep reminding yourself every single day. Just Sharad, worry about the things that are in your personal life, business life. If it's not in your control, there's nothing you can do. Just relax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it. What is your superpower?
Oh man, if I believe in a concept, if I believe in a theory, then I can just commit myself 100% to it. Yeah, like just talking about stoicism, it could be anything. If I believe in it, I'm just gonna go all in. I'm not gonna do anything half-heartedly.
Yeah. So the ability to commit.
Yeah, ability to commit. Yeah.
Gotcha. What would other people around you say? Power.
I'm usually very calm. I don't get worked up about. This is not excluding my wife. I just want to be clear. People say I'm very calm. I don't get worked up about many things, whether it's good or bad. Like if something great happens, great. Something bad happens, great. It doesn't like my emotions don't go up or down based on kind of what's happening. I can be very relaxed.
Yeah. Yeah. Same thing here, right? Pretty relaxed except we're around my wife.
Right.
Yeah. Right. She's like, why is that? It's like, well, because I care about you more.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And so those that we're closest to are the ones that can affect us the most. What is your biggest regret?
I think I mentioned earlier, not buying more properties and not working with a coach earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, those two.
How did you learn your greatest lesson?
Connecting with other people and making mistakes. I'm okay making mistakes as long as I'm making a mistake only once. If I don't learn from it, then there's something wrong with me. If I make a mistake and I learn from it, I'm okay, making that mistake, as long as it doesn't just ruin the whole company or life. Yeah.
Right. Is there any one particular failure that you learned the most from?
Ooh. The one that I learned the most from is making. I mean, it did not happen, but I was gonna give a big chunk of my company equity to someone without really consulting with someone. It just luckily things didn't work out. But if it had worked out, that would have been really, really bad decision. I think that's when I realized I need something much smarter, way more ahead of me in life to kind of just, rather than making these decisions based on my gut feeling or not, just having a good feeling about it, but not really thinking through everything that could, good or bad, that could happen. So that's why I work with a personal coach now.
So you didn't have the ability to quantify it because everything else is quantified.
Yeah, but that I could not. It was just based on promises. Hey, if you give us this much equity in the business, your business will be at this level. But there's no milestones set in there. I mean, luckily it didn't work out. But if it had worked out, I think it would have been a pretty bad deal for me.
Yeah. Who is helping you? I mean, do you feel comfortable sharing who's helping you now?
I mean, I have a business coach that I work with. I didn't ask his permission if it was okay for me to share.
Totally fine.
Yeah.
What book have you gifted more than any other?
What book would I give?
Have you gifted?
Have I gifted? Dating Greatly by Brene Brown. That's the one. Dating Greatly by Brene Brown. It's about vulnerability.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's the one I've gifted the most.
Dating?
Daring. Daring.
Daring.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Daring Greatly.
Yes.
Okay.
By Brene Brown.
What's that about?
It's about being vulnerable, being open about it goes against like what I just talked about, stoicism.
Mhm.
But this is like, but that I gifted to my family, my friends. It's kind of when you're going through life, you're going through different stages. You need different books at different stages of your life. So back then, like about a few years ago, I believe that book had a huge impact on my life. So that I gifted to a lot of people.
What about it inspired you?
Just it's okay to be vulnerable. It doesn't make you weak. Sharing, the struggles that you're going through. It just, if you're more open about it, you'll realize you'll have more genuine connections with
Right.
other people.
Authenticity.
Yeah, definitely. Authenticity was a big lesson from it. When you look at like social media, like typically when you're looking at social media, you're scrolling Instagram, you're looking at someone's highlights of their life, and you're typically looking at when you're feeling really low about yourself. It's not a fair comparison. So that the book talks about like when you sit across from someone and I say, Steve, this is what I'm struggling with. I let my guard down.
Mhm.
You're gonna open up a little bit about yourself also, right?
Right.
That's how you build authentic connections with people.
Yeah. Instagram and all these other social medias, like it's their sports center top 10 of the day.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Or top 3.
Top 3.
Right?
Yeah.
These are the top 3 things of my day today.
Exactly. And then it's become like, what can I watch in like 60 seconds?
Yeah.
Like people don't even have time to like sit in front and watch something like
But
10
this
minutes.
isn't like the time I fought with my wife, or I
Right.
disappointed my kids,
Right.
or my team members are upset because I was supposed to do this and I didn't get it done in time.
Yeah.
That's not going on social media.
That's not. Exactly. That's not. Yeah, that's not. Like nobody's putting on social media, I had a cheat day, I didn't feel good about myself. I was supposed to do this. I committed myself to do this, but I didn't do this because nobody's doing that because,
Right.
Nobody wants to hear that. Or I don't know if nobody wants to share that.
I think if you shared it, because like when people go like, it's interesting, right? Because if you go and share like your worst failures, people
Right.
are like all about it, right? But if it's like inconveniences or things you're down about, they might be
Yeah,
like, stop complaining.
Exactly. Yeah, there has to be like fine line between you're being genuine about what you're struggling with, or you complain, oh my God, I can't believe how much traffic there is.
All right.
Yeah.
I mean, like, so you were talking about earlier, like, how like the freedom that you have from not watching sports anymore, right?
Right.
And unfortunately, at this exact moment, I'm a big Suns fan.
Right.
And so like I'm like screaming at the TV as like, why would you do that?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like, do I go, like, if I go and complain about the rest, like, well, that's not really worth listening about.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but it's, like I love, like outside of, I love playing pickleball. Absolutely love playing pickleball.
You're one of those.
Oh my God. Yeah. I'm one of those, man. I only started playing 3 months ago. I'm totally hooked to it.
Yeah.
But like, that's one place where I kind of get really worked up. Man, I can't believe I lost that point.
So I got Dean Rogers, Tony Javier, and now Paul Myers.
Right.
They're all trying to get me to do it. I was like, I'm not doing it.
Yeah. No, I played with Tony Javier. He beat my ass. Yeah.
I'd hope so. I mean, the way he talks about it.
He's pretty good. It's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want you to think about some last thoughts you want to leave all the listeners with. Guys, hope you guys got a ton of value today. We launched our sales community back in May. We're almost at 200 members now. So if you want to join a community of closers, right? You want to get better at locking up contracts, go to salesdisruptors.com, join our sales community. What are some last thoughts you'd like to leave everybody with?
One question we get a lot is, people ask us, what marketing channel should I start with? And our answer is always the one that you can stick with the longest. At the end of the day, every marketing works. It doesn't matter whether you're doing direct mail, cold calling, PPC, SMS, whatever it is. Just whatever you're doing, just stick with this for long enough. It's like losing weight. You're not going to lose weight by just going to gym once. You got to go long enough for you to start seeing effect. So yeah, if you're an investor struggling to find deals, pick a marketing channel and stick with it long enough, at least 6 months for you to be able to make a decision whether it worked or not.
Yeah. Perfect. Someone wanted to connect with you. what's the best way for them to do that?
If they wanted to connect with me, it would be through email, Sharad at REsimpli.com.
Yeah, it's not Facebook.
It's not Facebook, yeah. It's not.
And then if someone want, again, find out more about REsimpli.
Yeah, they go to REsimpli.com, or if they have any specific question, they can reach out to me, and I'll take care of that email.
Yeah. And for those of you guys listening, it's simply with an I.
Yes.
All right. REsimpli.
Yeah.
.com.
Cool.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you,
It's a pleasure.
Steve. Thank you, man. Absolutely.
Shout out to Steve Trang. Jump on the Steve Trang. We real estate disruptors.